Good evening. Thank you so much to Yom HaShoah UK for the opportunity to be part of this evening, and a special thank you to Ruth Barnett, who is joining us. Good evening, Ruth.
Good evening.
It is lovely to see you, and welcome so much to everybody who is joining us this evening. And I'm hoping that we are obviously in very different circumstances, but we still really have an opportunity to remember and to learn, and we are so privileged that obviously Ruth is part of that with us this evening. And what we are going to begin with is just a very short film that we have put together specifically for younger people who at the moment are learning at home, away from school, and learning in very different circumstances. And these films are an opportunity to give us a chance to come together. And this particular one shares a little of Ruth's story. So we are going to share the film with you first.
Hello and welcome. My name is Nicola. Here at the National Holocaust Centre and Museum, we share the stories of people who were not safe in their own countries and had to leave to come to the UK either before or after the Second World War. Ruth Barnett was only 4 years old when she had to leave Germany to escape the Nazis. She arrived in the UK with her mother and her brother Martin to be looked after by a foster family. This is Ruth describing her arrival in London.
When we first arrived, and being shocked by the red double-decker buses. And I said to my brother, why do the English people paint their buses red, the colour of blood? And my brother said to me, you'll just have to get used to it. Everybody in England is mad. And that satisfied me, because he was describing what I was feeling, and probably he was feeling it too, the experience of everything being different and nothing familiar was there anymore, was like a world gone mad.
A world turned upside down. For Ruth, arriving in the UK for the first time, everything is different and strange. For refugees arriving in the UK today, those experiences are still the same. We would like you to create a welcome campaign for refugees today. Think about what is different and special about the UK. You could include things about special people, important phrases, the food we eat, and even the weather. You can do this in a number of different ways. Perhaps you'd like to create a leaflet telling people all about what is special about living in Britain. Or create a poster that gives information about why Britain is unique. Another option is to design a presentation which can be shared more widely. We would love to see the work you produce, so please send it to us at specialstories@holocaust.org.uk. We hope to share your work with Ruth and our survivor family over the coming weeks to keep us all connected and share our stories.
One of the things that Nicola talks about in that film is Ruth describing a world turned upside down. And obviously we are in such very different circumstances, but for lots of you at home, you are experiencing a really big change in the world. One of the differences between the experience that we are facing and obviously the experiences that Ruth had is that we are in this together and we are going through this change together. And when Ruth and I were speaking earlier today, Ruth was saying how much she is really looking forward to seeing some of the work that you produce. Ruth, I don't know if you want to say a little word.
I'm very much looking forward to seeing what the students produce.
Absolutely. And when you go to our website, there is the film sharing Ruth's story, and there are 2 other films sharing the stories of 2 of our other survivors. And it would be absolutely fantastic for you to have a look at those and to send us by email some of the work that you do, a photograph of what it is that you produce, and we can share those with Ruth, Bob, Ruth Denker, and other members of our survivor family. And Ruth is going to share with us a little bit more of her testimony, of her experiences. And obviously, we haven't got the time tonight, Ruth, obviously, for you to share your testimony in full with us tonight. But we know, obviously, that Ruth left Germany at the age of 4, and Ruth has actually written a book that shares her experiences in more detail. Thank you, Ruth, that Ruth is holding it up for us. So hopefully you will be really interested and inspired from listening to part of Ruth's story this evening, and you will go and seek this out and have a look. You have certainly got time to be doing some reading over the next few weeks. So this is something that you should really have a look for. And Ruth, I don't know if you're able to just share with us just maybe a few key parts of your experiences that you think, again, especially for some of our younger learners, might be things that they might find really valuable and interesting from your experiences. I know one of the things that we were talking about earlier was that experience of being a refugee and what that meant.
Yes, I'll just say that you can get that book on Amazon. And I'd like to show the students a picture of before things got bad in Berlin. Those were happy days. I'm only a baby there. And before I came to England. And the experience of coming to England was just as if somebody had taken the whole world away, like ripping a carpet from under my feet, leaving me floundering in a world that was so different. It made no sense at all because I didn't even know the language. But I did have my brother with me. He was only 7 and I was 4. But he just developed the knack of calming me down. I could ask him any question and he always had an answer, even if it was a crazy one. He said it calmly. And brothers and sisters are so important. If we had been separated, I don't think I would have survived. And perhaps he wouldn't have either.
So that really, really key relationship, Ruth, that you had with Martin, really important relationship that you had with him.
Absolutely. We fought like cats and dogs, but we always ended up agreeing to differ because we weren't going to sacrifice our relationship to an argument.
Absolutely. I can imagine in quite a few homes at the moment, there may be some brothers, sisters, brothers and brothers having some squabbles at the moment while everybody is kind of very close together. But like you say, Ruth, just how important that relationship is. And I think you were saying as well before that there were other things that became really important to you. You were talking about the relationship and the comfort that you took from being with animals as well.
Yes, I really liked the animals because they would accept you exactly as you are. Why can't people do that? If you treat them kindly, they become your friends. They'll do anything for you, particularly the horses. I love the horses, including the big work horses. I could do anything with them, but I wasn't allowed to plough. You have to keep a straight line. I could only drive them in wagons or lead them, etc. And of course, I rode ponies to round up the sheep on the downs. That was a lovely life on the farm. That was my 3rd foster family. After 2 foster families and a hostel, I really dug in roots on the farm so that it was really, really difficult when my parents got together again in Germany and wanted me to come to Germany. And I had been absolutely thoroughly brainwashed with British propaganda against Germany. I was terrified of Germany. It couldn't possibly work. If you think about it, if you separate a family for 10 years, you can't just put them back together again. You can read all about that in my book.
Yes. And like you say, Ruth, that experience of being separated for so long, that when then eventually, like you say, you came back together, how difficult actually that was. And I think that's something that we are really conscious of when we're working at the museum and we're working with younger people at the museum, is that as we're learning about the Kindertransport, is really starting to share how complicated and complex and difficult those experiences were. And at the museum, one of the ways that the younger students learn is by going into our journey exhibition and learning about Leo, who is a character who is drawn together from lots of different parts of testimony. And there are a few pictures that we are just going to show you now, just to give you a glimpse of a resource that we have been working on with Ruth and with lots of other people as well, to create a digital version of the Journey exhibition. So this resource is able to be accessed by iPads and by tablets, so that at home you are able to start to explore the world of Leo, and you are able to start to see some of the changes that take place in his life. So by exploring his time at school and the way that he is treated at school, by seeing what starts to take place in his community, and obviously the changes that take place within the community, and the ways in which life becomes more dangerous and more difficult, and eventually Leo leaves on the Kindertransport. And that journey, a bit like Ruth was talking about in her experience, but the journey that Leo makes leaving on his own on the Kindertransport, it's a way, obviously, of starting to share some of those themes from those experiences. And as I said, we have been so privileged that, Ruth, you have been so involved in the way that we have been putting that together. And I just wondered, please, why you maybe thought it was really important for younger learners and others to really explore what happened in terms of the Kindertransport and the history of the Kindertransport.
Yes, I think it's very, very important that young people learn about what happened, because it hasn't stopped happening. It's happening still today. Lots of families are split up, lots of children are separated from their parents, and they are going on these journeys, and they need a little help. They are desperate to be accepted and loved. And they just need a smile, a feeling that you're not their enemy, that you're their friend, that you will help them. And you may find there are people in your own class that have recently gone through this experience.
And I think that's so true, isn't it, Ruth, that often we don't know what it is that is happening with other people and with other children in class. And like you say, it can be what seem those really small actions that can really make a difference to the way that somebody feels and to a person's experiences, which is so important. And I think one of the things that we were really conscious of as we've been working on the Journey app, and we've been looking at this as a digital resource, and obviously again life is so strange for all of us at the moment, because at the moment the learning we are doing, so much of it is digital, and I can imagine that we have got lots of younger learners at home who have been either having Zoom calls with teachers or have been going on to the bite-sized lessons or have been accessing different websites. So it's been a really interesting time of learning. But when we've been looking at that resource and making sure that it feels really interesting and that you can explore the spaces and that you can go through and look at different objects, we've been really conscious that it is a digital resource and that is a different way about learning about the Holocaust. And Ruth, I just wondered again what your thoughts were, please, in terms of learning about the Holocaust using a digital resource and it being that different way of learning.
Well, it's a way of learning that young people seem to like and take to easily. Older people like me find it very, very difficult doing anything online. It seems so complicated to me. But my own grandchildren just took to it as soon as they were toddlers on their feet. They knew how to turn the television on and use a smartphone, and it is very important because it opens the doors to such a lot more.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that's one of the things that we found as we have been going into schools and we've been working with children in schools, that, like you say, Ruth, there's very much that comfortableness in that way of learning. And also it's a way that a lot of the students find really interesting as well as a way of learning, that I think is really important. So I think, like I say, it's for us this evening, Ruth, then we've not had chance to be able to listen to lots of the different parts of your testimony. But I think that one thing that when you come to speak at the centre that the children often find really interesting is actually just learning a little bit more about your life actually after you had become an adult and become a little bit older, and just what some of your other experiences are. So I don't know if you want to tell us a little bit about those.
Well, I couldn't bear to have anything to do with Germany. For 50 years after I came to England, I was so desperately trying to be 101% English and be accepted like everybody else. And that is probably what refugee children today are doing, desperate to be so English, to be accepted, that they lose their background. And if you cut off your roots, your original roots, you're not a whole person. I was 54 when I realized how I'd been denying my past and cutting it off. That's when I felt strong enough to face the past and connect up and learn my story, which I had been cutting off from. And I think that is very important, that everybody feels comfortable with their past. And people come in all different shapes, colours and sizes, but they're all equally human. That's something to remember when you find children perhaps coming new into your school who look and behave very differently. They're just as human as you are, and they need a little bit of help and a welcome smile.
I think, Ruth, to have something really practical to take away this evening, I think that is such an important point to take away. We've had another really interesting question come through, Ruth. A question from Ernest, who says that you've talked a little bit about obviously your experience and families who are separated by war and difficult experiences. And at the moment, obviously, we have got lots and lots of families who, for different reasons and circumstances, are separated by what is happening at the moment with coronavirus. And he was just wondering whether there were any thoughts that you had or any tips in terms of actually the families who are facing separation at the moment.
Well, there is technology now that we didn't have when I was a child. Go ahead and use it. We're forced to be physically separated, but the virus cannot separate us socially and emotionally because we have the technology to be together like we're all together right now.
Yeah.
And I would encourage people to find ways of connecting by this sort of distance technology.
Absolutely, Ruth. I think that that is really important, and I'm going to go back, obviously, to that little film that we saw with you in the beginning, and the other resources, obviously, that we have got on the website, because as a way of keeping connected, then obviously we have got lots of people at home at the moment. And obviously, we're all the same. We're only able to leave once a day at the most, if we're able to do that, to go out for a little walk, etc. So to be able to be in touch with members of our survivor family and to share those postcards and those ideas and those letters, that is a fantastic way of being able to be in touch. So I don't know if anybody has got any other questions that you'd like to send through for the last few minutes. Then obviously you are very, very welcome to send a question through. Just while we see if there's any other questions that come through, Ruth, I know, again, when we were speaking earlier, you were saying that even though this is a really difficult situation in lots of ways, you were saying that actually you thought, especially for young people, there was kind of a real maybe opportunity that might come from this as well.
Yes, indeed. There's an opportunity to think about, after it's all over, we can't go back to how we were before. There is never a going back, only a going forward. And what sort of a world do we want to go forward to? We have to create a better world for everybody. And now is the time to think about it and plan it. That's something that young people can be talking about together and sharing their ideas about how they would like a better world to be.
And I think that for us, Ruth, as the adults and the grown-ups, I think that puts a really good responsibility onto us as well, to make sure that as the young people are doing the listening and doing the thinking and doing the talking, that the adults make sure that we are really listening actually to some of those changes that they might want to see. So Ruth, I know that we're coming towards the end of our session. Can I ask if there is just one message that you would like some of our younger learners to take away from our thinking and our remembering from our session today? And if there's one message that you might like to leave with them?
There are so many opportunities. Take the opportunities and take them together. Think about other people, because enjoying what other people have to offer is much more interesting, leads to an interesting life, rather than selfishly thinking only of yourself. And the government tells us we must exercise our muscles. I say we must exercise the little grey cells in our brain as well, by taking every opportunity to learn. And you are not cut off from learning by the situation with the virus. You have all these technology opportunities to use that we didn't have when we were children. Life is very, very different to when I was a child.
Ruth, that is a fantastic message. Thank you. We need, as Ruth says, we need to be interested in each other. We need to be finding out what we can from the people around us and really thinking about what we can learn from those things that we might see as differences. And we need to be taking this opportunity to be able to learn as well. And we've had a last question that came through from Jane, just asking about the digital resource that Ruth and I were talking about earlier, the app. So we will make sure that we keep putting information out on our social media channels, so Facebook, Twitter. It might be grown-ups who are checking those, but keep an eye on those, and on our website as well. In the meantime, Ruth has recommended a book that you ought to go and find out. Thank you very much, Ruth. Ruth's going to hold it up again. Ruth has mentioned a book for you to go and find out about, so Person of No Nationality, to have a look at with somebody at home and to do some finding out and to do some learning. And I'm going to leave you with a little challenge, a little task to go onto our website to find one of those films and to make sure that from that there is something that you are able to share with Ruth or one of the other members of our survivor family. And we are going to be able to share our stories, and we are going to be able, just as Ruth said, to be able to stay connected. So thank you very, very much for joining us, and particularly Ruth, thank you so much. It has been absolutely inspirational speaking to you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ruth.
Thank you, everybody who is with us.
Thank you very much. Thank you, and take care, and we look forward to receiving some work from you very soon. Thank you.